The morning air is crisp, carrying with it the faint scent of the sea. Along the busy docks of Southampton, the world is stirring with anticipation. Men in uniforms call out to one another, voices echoing against the tall warehouses. Horse-drawn carts creak under the weight of heavy luggage. Porters in flat caps weave through the crowds, carrying trunks, hat boxes, and suitcases, each one marked with names and destinations written in looping black ink. And there, rising above it all, is the Titanic. Its hull stretches so far that it seems to vanish into the mist at both ends. Painted black and red, trimmed with a perfect white line, it gleams under the pale morning sun. The four great funnels tower high above the decks, each one a silent promise of the power that lies within. To the people gathered here, this ship is more than steel and rivets. It is the embodiment of progress, of human ambition, a floating palace ready to carry dreams across the wide Atlantic. Crowds have gathered along the quay. Families, friends, strangers, all drawn by the same sense of awe. Some are here to say farewell, their gloved hands clutching handkerchiefs, their eyes shining with both pride and sadness. Others are here simply to witness history, to watch as the largest ship ever built prepares to set sail for the first and only time. On the gangways, passengers begin to board. In the first-class line, men in tailored suits and women in fine hats walk with unhurried grace, pausing to greet acquaintances. Their tickets are checked, and they step onto polished decks, where stewards stand ready to guide them to their staterooms. Nearby, second-class families clutch their belongings tightly, while in the third-class line, young men with worn coats and hopeful eyes carry everything they own in a single bag. Each one is bound for a new life, a life that begins with this voyage. A whistle pierces the morning air, deep, resonant, and powerful. It rolls across the water, startling a flock of gulls into flight. The sound announces what everyone already knows. Departure is near. On the bridge, officers in crisp Navy uniforms confer quietly. Down below, deep in the heart of the ship, the engineers tend to the massive boilers, shoveling coal into roaring furnaces. The heat down there is fierce, the air thick with the smell of oil and steam. But this is where the Titanic's journey will truly be powered. As the clock moves closer to noon, the energy on the dock sharpens. Porters make their final runs, carrying bags and crates. A crate of fresh fruit, a bundle of newspapers, even a small cage carrying a songbird for a passenger who does not wish to leave behind its familiar song. At the railings, passengers wave to those still on the dock. Voices carry faintly over the distance. Promises to write letters, to send postcards, to meet again in New York. Children lean over the railing, pointing at the tugboats waiting to guide the great liner from the harbor. The smell of the sea is stronger now, mixed with the faint tang of coal smoke drifting from the funnels. Finally, the great ship gives a low, shuddering sound as her engines awaken. Beneath the waterline, the massive propellers begin to turn, slowly at first, then with greater strength. Ropes are released from the bollards, coiling back into the hands of the crew. The tugboats move into position, pulling gently, guiding the Titanic away from the quay. On shore, the crowd surges forward to the very edge, eager to catch one last glimpse. Handkerchiefs wave in the cold air. Some faces are lit with joy, others with a quiet, unspoken sorrow. The Titanic begins to move, gliding past the dock with a grace that belies her size. The water at her bow ripples outward in slow, deliberate waves. From above, the sunlight strikes the polished brass and freshly painted decks, making them glow like something almost unreal. As Southampton fades into the distance, the sounds of the dockyard are replaced by the steady rhythm of the sea. Passengers explore their new surroundings. Grand staircases with carved oak railings, shining chandeliers, and plush carpets that give under each step. In the smoking rooms, men light cigars and speak in low, measured tones. On the promenade decks, women stroll slowly, the wind lifting the edges of their scarves. Behind them, the English coast grows smaller and smaller, until it becomes nothing more than a thin, hazy line on the horizon. Ahead, the open Atlantic stretches in every direction, endless, blue, and full of promise. Somewhere deep inside, no one imagines that this journey will be anything other than glorious. For now, the Titanic sails proudly forward, her bow cutting cleanly through the water, her passengers carrying with them the certainty that they are part of something extraordinary. And so begins the voyage. A voyage that, though brief, will be remembered for as long as stories are told. Morning light spills across the decks, a pale gold that glitters against polished brass railings and the clean white lines of the ship's upper works. The sea is calm today, its surface shifting gently beneath a cool spring breeze. Far below, the wake stretches in two smooth lines, trailing behind like ribbons in the deep blue. The Titanic is now fully at sea. Southampton is a memory, and the next port of call lies ahead, Cherbourg, France. But for now, the ship feels like its own world, a floating city where time seems to slow, and life unfolds in quiet rhythm. On the first-class promenade, the day begins with a walk. Men in tailored morning coats stroll beside women in flowing dresses, their voices muffled by the steady whisper of the wind. The wooden planks beneath their feet are freshly scrubbed and faintly scented of salt water. Every so often, a steward passes with a polite nod, carrying a tray of tea or delivering a message in a cream-colored envelope. Below, in the first-class dining saloon, the morning meal is served. The room is a vision of Edwardian elegance. Columns with gilded trim, spotless white linens, and gleaming silverware. The air is warm and faintly scented with fresh coffee and baked rolls. At one table, a gentleman unfolds a newspaper delivered from shore before departure. At another, a young couple leans close, speaking in hushed tones about the excitement of arriving in New York. Farther aft, second-class passengers gather for their own breakfast in a smaller but still well-appointed dining room. Here the mood is friendly, even familiar. The accents at the tables come from many places: Scotland, Ireland, Germany, and beyond. Each voice carrying its own story of where they've been and where they hope to go. Below decks, in the third-class dining area, the atmosphere is livelier still. Wooden benches and long tables are filled with families, young men and women traveling alone for the first time. A meal of porridge, bread and tea is served simply but with care. Here, conversations overlap. Talk of work waiting in America, of relatives already across the ocean, of a chance to begin again. Children laugh as they finish their breakfast, eager to explore the small open spaces allowed to them on deck. Above all this, on the bridge, the officers keep their steady watch. The air is brisk here, and the horizon seems endless. They speak quietly, noting the ship's course, the wind's direction, and the steady speed that keeps the Titanic on schedule. By midday, the sun is higher, and the ship has settled into the rhythm of the voyage. In first class, the grand staircase becomes a place of gentle activity. The wide oak steps are polished to a mirror sheen, the brass clock above ticking softly in the background. Ladies descend, dressed in afternoon attire, on their way to the lounge or reading room. Gentlemen pause to speak with acquaintances, discussing business, politics, or the latest gossip from England. In the reading and writing room, quiet reigns. The light here is soft, filtered through tall windows. A woman dips her pen into an inkwell, pausing between sentences as the ship's motion rocks gently beneath her. Nearby, an older man reads a leather-bound book, his spectacles slipping slightly down his nose. Elsewhere in the smoking room, the air is scented with tobacco and warmed by the deep green leather chairs. Men lean back, puffing at cigars, while others sit forward in quiet games of cards. The low murmur of conversation mixes with the faint clink of glasses as stewards move between tables. Outside, the promenade decks offer space for fresh air and conversation. Children play simple games, watched over by their nannies. Couples walk slowly, pausing at the rail to gaze out over the open sea. The sound here is peaceful, the low hum of the engines, the steady rush of water along the hull. In second class, passengers gather in the library or enjoy the sheltered promenade. There is laughter here, stories exchanged, and plans for arrival made in the casual comfort of shared tables and warm tea. And in third class, music drifts through the air. A group of young men have gathered with a fiddle and accordion, playing tunes from home. The rhythm is quick, the melody bright, and soon there is clapping in time to the music. For a moment, the sea feels far away, and the ship itself feels like a small village in motion. By late afternoon, the sky shifts. Clouds gather in soft layers, turning the light a cooler silver. The air grows sharper, carrying with it the scent of the wide Atlantic. Stewards light the lamps in the corridors, and the glow spills into the hallways, warm against the growing dimness outside. As evening approaches, the ship's great dining rooms fill once again. First class dines in elegance, fine china, crystal glasses, and courses served in precise order. Second class enjoys hearty meals and lively conversation. In third class, simple but satisfying fare is. It is now the third day of the voyage. The Titanic glides across the open Atlantic, her hull cutting smoothly through waters that seem endless in every direction. The air is cool and fresh, carrying with it the faint tang of salt and the whisper of wind over steel. Above, the sky is a pale, endless blue, streaked here and there with soft clouds drifting lazily westward. The sea has grown calmer since yesterday. The gentle roll of the ship is barely felt on the higher decks, and many passengers take the chance to walk outside, wrapped in warm coats against the chill. From the first-class promenade, the view is nothing but water, deep, shifting shades of blue that darken toward the horizon. Occasionally, a seabird appears, circling the ship for a while before vanishing again into the distance. In first class, the day begins with quiet leisure. Some passengers remain in their cabins, savoring a slow breakfast served by their stewards. Others gather in the lounge, where sunlight spills through tall windows onto plush chairs and polished tables. The room is filled with the soft rustle of newspapers, the clink of teacups, and the low murmur of conversation. The deck chairs on the boat deck are lined neatly in rows, each fitted with a warm plaid blanket. A few gentlemen sit with books in hand, occasionally glancing up to watch the sea. Others close their eyes, letting the rhythmic sound of the waves fill their ears. For some, the voyage is not simply a means of travel. It is a rare escape from the pace of life on land. In second class, the day has its own charm. The sheltered promenade is alive with quiet chatter and laughter. Passengers gather in small groups, sharing stories of home or talking about the excitement of arriving in America. Children play in the open space, their voices bright in the cool air. The library here is warm and inviting, with its polished wood and shelves lined with books. A few passengers sit in comfortable chairs, reading by the light of tall windows. A game of chess unfolds at one corner table, the players leaning in over the board with careful focus. Farther below, in third class, life is livelier. The air carries the sound of music, a fiddle tune played by one of the passengers, joined by an accordion and the steady beat of a hand tapping a wooden table. Young men talk of work they hope to find in New York, their voices carrying the blend of excitement and uncertainty that comes with leaving home. Mothers keep watch over their children, who dart between the benches, chasing one another in small bursts of energy. The ship itself feels like a living thing. Its engines thrum deep below, a constant heartbeat that can be felt through the floorboards. Everywhere, stewards and stewardesses move quietly, tending to cabins, delivering messages, and ensuring that life aboard runs smoothly. The scent of fresh bread drifts up from the kitchens, mixing with the faint coal smoke carried on the wind from the ship's funnels. By midday, the temperature has dropped slightly. The ship's whistle sounds, deep, resonant, and powerful, marking the half-hour and echoing out over the open water. On the bridge, the officers keep their steady watch, noting speed, position, and the calm state of the sea. They speak in measured tones, their eyes scanning the horizon and the instruments that keep the great liner on course. Afternoon tea is served in first class, an elegant ritual of fine china, delicate pastries, and perfectly brewed blends. The saloon is bright with conversation as passengers exchange news and share observations of the voyage so far. Outside, the ship presses forward, the sea changing color as the sun begins its slow descent. In second class, passengers enjoy their own afternoon refreshments, seated in the warm dining saloon or standing at the rails with a cup in hand. And in third class, the day continues with music, card games, and the simple joy of being part of a great journey. As evening approaches, the air turns colder. The western horizon glows with streaks of gold and deep crimson, fading into violet as the sun dips below the waterline. The lamps are lit on deck, casting a warm glow against the darkening sky. Couples walk slowly under the stars, the vastness of the night sea stretching out around them. Below, the dining rooms come alive with the bustle of the evening meal. Conversations grow louder, glasses clink, and the air is rich with the aromas of roasted meats and fresh bread. In first class, music drifts from the orchestra, its soft notes weaving through the background. In third class, laughter rises over the hum of voices, filling the space with warmth despite the cool night outside. By the time night has fully settled, the Titanic sails on beneath a sky alive with stars, more than most passengers have ever seen at once. The ocean is calm, the air still, and the great ship seems to glide effortlessly into the darkness. It is Sunday, April 14th, 1912. The Titanic is deep into her voyage now, more than halfway across the Atlantic. The air this morning is sharper, colder, a hint of the ice fields that lie farther north. A pale sun rises over the horizon, its light touching the steel hull with a muted glow. The sea is unusually calm, so calm that some describe it as like glass, the surface perfectly smooth, reflecting the sky above. On deck, passengers greet the morning in their own ways. In first class, some walk briskly along the promenade, bundled in coats and scarves, their breath faint in the chill air. Others remain inside, sipping coffee or tea in the warmth of the lounge. The windows here frame the endless expanse of water, so still it seems almost frozen. In second class, families gather by the rails to watch the waves. Children point to small pieces of ice drifting past, harmless, no bigger than a fist, yet reminders of the ship's northern route. Some take photographs, eager to capture a moment of calm beauty in the middle of the vast ocean. Below, in third class, the morning is filled with music and conversation. The air carries the aroma of freshly baked bread, mixed with the faint scent of coal smoke from the funnels above. Passengers share stories of home, of loved ones left behind, and of the hopes they carry for the life that awaits them in America. The ship's engines hum steadily, each deep vibration a reminder of the immense power moving this floating city forward. On the bridge, Captain Edward Smith stands for a time, gazing out across the still water. The officers record the weather, calm seas, clear skies, and mark the ship's position with precision. Wireless operators in the Marconi room work steadily, sending and receiving messages from other ships, some of which carry reports of ice ahead. By midday, the sun is bright, but the air remains cold. Deck chairs are set out for those who wish to sit in the crisp air. A few brave souls read beneath blankets, their faces pink from the wind. The faint creak of the ship's timbers mixes with the sound of water parting against the bow. In the first-class dining saloon, lunch is served in elegance. Waiters move smoothly between the tables, silver trays balanced with practiced ease. The clink of cutlery and the low murmur of conversation fill the room. Nearby, in the Café Parisien, passengers enjoy a more casual meal, with sunlight pouring through the windows and the scent of fresh flowers on each table. In second class, the atmosphere is warm and friendly. Groups gather in the library to read or write letters home, the pages covered with careful handwriting that tells of calm seas, fine weather, and the comforts of the voyage. In third class, passengers eat hearty meals in long, bustling dining rooms, the air filled with laughter and the sound of clinking mugs. Afternoon brings a growing chill. The horizon begins to change. Pale, ice-blue glimmers in the far distance. The air itself feels different now, dry, crisp, almost sharp in the lungs. Some passengers remark on it, pulling their coats tighter. The wireless operators are busy. Several ice warnings arrive from ships farther along the route. The Coronia, the Baltic, the America, and the Californian. The messages speak of large ice fields and drifting bergs. Most are acknowledged and filed, some are passed along to the bridge. The Titanic continues on at full speed, her engines driving her forward at over 22 knots. As the sun begins to set, the sea remains eerily still. The water mirrors the fading light, gold deepening to crimson, then to the deep violet of approaching night. Lamps are lit along the decks, casting pools of warm light on the wooden planks. Couples stroll beneath the glow, while others stand at the rail, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. Dinner that evening is a grand affair in first class. The orchestra plays softly as guests in evening dress enjoy multiple courses: oysters, lamb, delicate pastries. Conversation flows easily. The air is filled with the clink of glasses and the faint strains of a waltz. Few give thought to the cold outside, or to the ice warnings that have crossed the wireless that day. In second class, the dining room is equally lively, though simpler in style. Families share meals, children laugh, and the talk is of plans for the days ahead in New York. In third class, the evening is filled with music and dance. Fiddles and accordions playing lively tunes, feet tapping in time on the wooden floor. By 9 p.m., the night has grown bitterly cold. Frost begins to form on the railings. The sky is clear, astonishingly clear, and the stars shine with a brilliance many have never seen. The moonless night leaves the ocean in darkness, except for the shimmering band of starlight stretching across the calm water. On the bridge, the lookouts climb into their post high above the bow. It is just past 11:30 p.m., April 14th, 1912. The Titanic cuts through the calm Atlantic night, her bow cleaving the glassy water with effortless grace. The engines hum steadily, driving her forward at over 22 knots. The air is still, cold, almost unnaturally so, and the only sound is the low thrum of machinery deep within her hull. Above, the sky is a dome of stars, sharp, bright, and countless. There is no moon to soften the darkness, only the glittering constellations reflected faintly on the ocean's mirror-like surface. It is the kind of night that feels eternal, untouched by time. On the bridge, First Officer William Murdoch is in command. Captain Smith has retired for the night, leaving his officers to maintain their steady course. In the crow's nest, two lookouts, Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee, stand watch, their eyes sweeping the dark horizon. They have no binoculars. They must rely entirely on their sight. Down in the warmth of first-class cabins, many passengers are asleep, wrapped in heavy blankets. Others linger in the smoking rooms, chatting quietly over drinks and cigars. In second class, the lights are dim, and the last of the evening's conversations fade into silence. In third class, a few small groups are still awake, talking in hushed voices in the corridors. The cold deepens. On deck, frost glitters faintly on the railings. The air has the biting dryness that sailors know too well, the breath of the ice fields. At 11:39 p.m., Frederick Fleet's eyes catch something unusual on the horizon. A shape. A faint, ghostly outline against the starlit sky. It rises vertically, darker than the sea and sky around it, but strangely still, with no waves breaking at its base. It takes him a heartbeat to understand. Iceberg. Fleet reacts instantly. He strikes the bell 3 times, the warning for danger ahead, and snatches the phone to the bridge. "Iceberg right ahead," he calls down to the officer on duty. On the bridge, Murdoch reacts without hesitation. He orders, "Hard a starboard," the command to turn the ship to port. Almost simultaneously, he signals for the engines to be reversed, a desperate attempt to slow the Titanic's momentum. The great ship responds, but slowly. Her massive bulk resists the turn, and the frigid water clings to her hull like glue. Seconds pass, long, drawn-out seconds that seem to stretch forever, as the iceberg looms larger in the darkness. Then, it happens. A deep, grinding sound cuts through the still night. Not a crashing blow, but a tearing, rending noise that vibrates through the steel. The iceberg scrapes along the starboard side, below the waterline. Chunks of ice tumble onto the forward well-deck, sparkling white against the blackness. Most passengers feel only a faint shudder, a strange, almost gentle vibration through the floor. In the first-class smoking room, a few glance up, curious. Some even return to their card games, thinking nothing of it. In third class, a few hear the noise and see the ice slide past the portholes, but no one yet understands the danger. Below, deep in the ship's bowels, the story is different. Seawater bursts through torn seams in the hull, flooding the forward compartments with terrifying speed. In the mailroom, bags of letters and packages are lifted by the rising water. In the boiler rooms, stokers shout as icy seawater rushes across the floor, steam hissing violently where it meets the red-hot furnaces. On the bridge, Murdoch orders the watertight doors closed. A deep clang echoes through the ship as massive steel doors slam shut between compartments. But already, The ocean has claimed too much. The Titanic's first 5 compartments are flooding. She is designed to stay afloat with 4 flooded, not 5. Moments later, Captain Smith arrives on the bridge, summoned from his cabin. He asks the question every mariner dreads. "What have we struck?" Murdoch answers, "An iceberg, sir. I hard a-starboarded and reversed the engines, but she was too close." Smith orders an immediate inspection. Within minutes, Thomas Andrews, the ship's designer, arrives and joins the survey. They move quickly from compartment to compartment, but the truth is clear almost immediately. The damage is fatal. The ship will sink. Andrews estimates she has an hour and a half, 2 at most. The shock of this realization passes over the captain's face, but he says nothing. Instead, he begins giving quiet, precise orders. The crew is to prepare the lifeboats. Distress signals will be sent out by the wireless. Passengers are to be roused, calmly, but quickly. Above, in the freezing night air, the Titanic continues forward for a short while, her engines slowing to a stop. The iceberg drifts silently into the darkness behind her, a pale giant disappearing into the starlit void. Most aboard have no idea that the ship's fate has already been sealed. For them, the night is still calm, still beautiful. It is just after midnight, April 15th, 1912. The Titanic floats motionless on the Atlantic, her bow already dipping almost imperceptibly toward the sea. The night remains still and bitterly cold, so cold that every breath becomes a pale cloud, drifting into the starlit dark. On the bridge, Captain Smith has made his decision. The lifeboats will be uncovered, swung out, and prepared for loading. The ship's wireless operators, Jack Phillips and Harold Bride, are ordered to send the distress call. Over the spark transmitter, the urgent signal crackles into the night. "CQD, CQD, SOS. This is Titanic, struck iceberg. Require immediate assistance." Far across the sea, a handful of ships receive the message. The Carpathia answers. She is 58 miles away and steaming toward them at full speed. But help will not arrive for hours. On deck, the crew moves with hurried precision. Covers are stripped from the wooden lifeboats. Davits, the white curved arms that hold the boats, creak as they swing out over the ship's side. The winch ropes groan as they are readied to lower the boats into the inky water below. In the cabins, stewards go door to door, knocking softly at first, then more firmly. Passengers stir, groggy, confused. Many are told simply to dress warmly and come up on deck as a precaution. Few grasp the seriousness of what is happening. In first class, some women slip fur coats over silk evening gowns, fastening pearl brooches with gloved fingers. Men pull on heavy overcoats, still wearing their dinner jackets beneath. Some even laugh, thinking it is a minor inconvenience, perhaps even an unscheduled drill. In second class, the mood is more uncertain. Families wrap scarves around children, gather small bags, and move slowly toward the upper decks. Some stop to ask crew members questions. Is something wrong? Is the ship sinking? But the answers remain vague. In third class, the situation is worse. Passengers are held back by locked gates and narrow corridors. Many do not speak English and struggle to understand the shouted instructions. Some are told to wait for further directions, unaware that precious minutes are slipping away. On the boat deck, a group of passengers cluster near the first lifeboat to be lowered. It is lifeboat number 7, starboard side. Second Officer Charles Lightoller is in charge of the port side, Murdoch on the starboard. The captain has ordered women and children first. On Lightoller's side, that means no men at all unless no women are present. On Murdoch's, some men will be allowed if there is space. But many of the first to arrive at the boats hesitate. They look down at the black, endless water far below and think the ship seems safer than the tiny craft swaying on the davits. They do not yet believe she will sink. Crewmen plead with them to step forward. Some women step back, saying they will wait for the next boat, wanting to stay with their husbands. Others climb in reluctantly, their faces pale in the lamplight. At 12:45 a.m., the first distress rockets blaze into the night. They burst high above the ship, white stars scattering in the darkness before fading away. On the horizon, lights of another vessel can be seen, or thought to be seen, but it makes no move toward them. Below decks, the water continues its steady, relentless advance. In the mailroom, sacks of letters and packages float like weightless shadows. In the forward boiler rooms, the icy flood swirls waist deep, forcing stokers to retreat. The Titanic's bow sinks ever so slightly lower, but still too subtly for most on deck to notice. Lifeboat number 7 finally lowers away with just 28 people aboard, though it can carry more than twice that number. The crew fears the boats might break if fully loaded and lowered, not realizing they are far stronger than they appear. One by one, more boats are swung out. Lifeboat number 5 follows, then number 3, each leaving with empty seats. The gap between reality and perception remains vast. The danger is real, but belief in it has yet to take hold. Meanwhile, the band begins to play on the deck near the grand staircase. Soft, cheerful tunes float into the cold night, calming the uneasy and distracting from the growing fear. It is a deliberate choice, to keep the crowd orderly, to avoid panic. In the wireless room, Phillips and Bride continue sending desperate messages. "Come at once. We have struck iceberg. Sinking fast." Their hands are numb, but they keep working, the sparks of the transmitter hissing into the night. At 1:00 a.m., the list of the ship becomes more noticeable. Passengers feel it beneath their feet, a slight tilt, just enough to make them grasp the railings as they walk. The air grows colder still, the chill biting through wool and fur alike. But still, many do not believe. Some return to the warmth of the smoking rooms, certain the danger is exaggerated. It is past 2:00 a.m. on April 15, 1912. The Titanic, once the largest moving object on Earth, now leans heavily to port. Her bow is buried deep in the Atlantic, her stern rising ever so slightly from the water. The list is steep enough now that walking the decks feels unnatural. Every step requires a steady grip on railings and bulkheads. The cold is merciless. A bitter wind cuts across the exposed boat deck, biting at faces and numbing hands. The temperature of the air hovers just above freezing, but the water itself is far colder, near the point where life can last only minutes. Frost forms on railings, and the wood beneath passengers' feet is slick with a thin glaze of ice. By now, the remaining lifeboats are few. One after another, the earlier boats have slipped away into the dark, their lanterns bobbing on the black water, drifting farther with each passing moment. On deck, hundreds of passengers still wait, some calm, others frantic, all knowing there are not enough seats left for them all. Near the forward boats, crewmen shout for women and children. The rule is still being enforced, though desperation now begins to bend it. On the starboard side, men are climbing into the boats with their families, urged on by officers who realize the end is near. On the port side, lightoller remains strict. Men step forward only if no women are left in sight. Lifeboat number 4 lowers away with a handful of spaces still open. Then comes Collapsible C, a canvas-sided boat lashed to the roof of the officers' quarters. The deck lists so badly that passengers must step onto the curved roof to board it. Collapsible D follows, the last regular boat to be lowered into the water. Those left behind know the truth now. The next stage is survival without a boat. On the starboard side, a group of men works to free Collapsible A and B. 2 canvas boats stored upside down. The lashings are frozen, and the boats refuse to budge. Every second counts, but the ship's tilt is growing steeper. The band is still playing. Their music has shifted from cheerful ragtime to slow, solemn hymns. Some survivors later recall hearing "Nearer, my God, to Thee." Others remember different melodies. But all agree. The music was steady, unbroken, carrying on until the very end. Below, the boiler rooms are abandoned. The engineers have fought to keep the lights burning, the pumps running, and the wireless sending. But now the sea has reached their feet. The pumps fall silent, and the water begins to surge forward unchecked. In the grand staircase, crystal chandeliers sway above polished wood and gilded railings. Passengers rush past, some clutching life jackets, others burdened with valuables they will never need. The marble floor is slick with seawater now creeping up from the lower decks. At 2:10 a.m., a deep, rumbling groan shudders through the ship. It is the sound of metal under unbearable strain. The bow has sunk so low that the stern begins to lift clear of the water, exposing the massive bronze propellers to the cold night air. Passengers cling to anything they can grasp: railings, ventilators, rigging. Some gather at the stern, hoping it will remain above the water longer. Others leap into the sea, preferring to face the freezing water rather than be dragged under when the ship goes down. Collapsible B is finally freed, but is swept from the deck by a wave before it can be lowered. It lands upside down in the water, becoming a desperate raft for those who can reach it. Men scramble onto its slippery bottom, clinging to ropes and each other, waves washing over their legs. On the forward well deck, the icy water rushes higher, swallowing the name Titanic painted on the hull. People scream, pray, call for loved ones. Some stand frozen in shock, unable to move even as the water rises around them. At 2:17 a.m., the lights flicker once, twice, then go out entirely. For a moment, the ship is only a black silhouette against the star-filled sky. The sudden darkness is followed by the deafening roar of everything loose aboard. Pianos, furniture, machinery, tumbling through the collapsing interior. In the darkness, the great ship breaks. The forward section disappears beneath the waves, dragging the stern high into the air. Those clinging to the aft rail now find themselves nearly vertical, staring straight down into the black water below. Some lose their grip and fall, vanishing into the sea. The stern hangs there for a brief, impossible moment, a dark tower against the stars, before it begins its final plunge. The sea rushes upward to meet it, swallowing the last of the Titanic at 2:20 a.m. The sudden silence is chilling. The ship is gone. In her place is an empty stretch of ocean scattered with debris, and the faint cries of hundreds of voices calling into the night. It is the sound of human desperation, carried over the water, growing fainter with each passing minute.